Hello and welcome to Hashavua. My name is Yair Alon and I am a rabbi living in Brazil. You can find videos on my channel about the Parashot of the Torah and the Daily Zohar, both in Portuguese and our new projects, Talmud Vibes and Hashavua in English. Remember, all the videos have subtitles available in both languages. Check them out and enjoy! In case you missed our first video of this series, here is the link. Click here. Make sure to watch it and let me know how do you like it, okay? And if you did watch it and are here again, thank you for coming back. So you remember we discussed how Bava Kamma deals mainly with matters related to damages, and especially damages caused to properties. In the previous video we said why this is relevant to spirituality, okay? And now what's going to be seen this week. This week's discussion elaborates on the distinctions between the four primary categories of damage listed by the Mishnah. These categories are called avot. And what are they? Ox, maveh, pit, and fire. I know, maveh is a Hebrew word and I'm not translating it, but there is a reason why. The sages themselves argue about their meaning. For now, and out of simplicity, let's say this is a damage caused by people, okay? So again, we would have four avot, four main categories of damage: ox, people, pit, and fire. One of the main concerns of the sages is to analyze these categories and their specific natures. What distinguishes them? This is important because since they involve many different variables that would increase or diminish culpability of the one causing damage. For example, is the damage caused with deliberate intent or by accident? The one causing damage has a feeling pleasure in damaging things, such as in a revenge, or he damages just because it's his nature to do so? Is the damage caused by forces beyond one's control, like forces of the nature, like the wind and the rain, or are they under a human domain? And so on and so forth. Among this discussion, a very important distinction brought up in this section of Talmud is that between damage caused to someone else's item or animals as opposed to damage caused to a person's integrity or a person itself. These matters will be further elaborated later on in the tractate, but they are already mentioned briefly here, and the sages already let us foresee that they will consider damages to people way more severe than damage to property. But you might have thought that damage to people are only cases like accidents, like if an ox gores a person or if a person falls into a pit, and these are indeed cases discussed in the Talmud. But the sages go much further than that and teach us that other things are considered damage. For example, false witnesses and other damages caused by speech, desecration of offerings to the temple, which damage the people's reputation, robbery, and even sexual violence. I believe it's very important to open a parenthesis here and explain something that maybe you don't know and will help you better understand the structure of the Talmud. This dialogue I am referring here between the sages is taking place not only among the sages that are discussing matters at the time tractate Bava Kamma is being written, but by analyzing the Mishnah, which had been written generations before, to be more precise, around the 1st century of the Common Era. So our sages of the Talmud are engaging in a discussion with the Mishnaic texts of hundreds of years before their time. So this discussion spans over centuries of opinions and traditions. That makes the reading of Talmud even more challenging, as we must be constantly aware of the time frame in which a given opinion is expressed. And we must also discern if the sages mean what they are saying as legitimate questions, rhetorical questions to elaborate on their own theories, or real objections to another sage's point of view, whether contemporary to them or from their past, for example. Okay, but back to our theme. The Talmud asks a very philosophical question. Is it typical of man to cause damage? Of course, such complex a question would require a dedicated course just to start thinking about it. But sages try to decide this in order to know how to evaluate guilt in case of damages caused by man. What's your take of that? Should man be considered as naturally prone to cause damage, and therefore one must always be aware of his actions not to harm other people? Or maybe should we think that man only causes harm by accident, when something unusual happens, and therefore we should not be that careful, and we can go on with our lives quite as free as possible without having to worry all the time if we are on the verge of causing harm to others? One last topic I would like to address in this vast discussion, and I think is very interesting, is the following. We said there are four main categories of damage. If there are main categories, what we call avot, this means that there must be subcategories. And the Talmud indeed asks what are the subcategories of ox, fire, pit, etc. I won't deal with all of them here, but I would like to reflect a little bit on the subcategories the Talmud presents for ox: goring, keren, eating, shen, and trampling, regel. This means that ox can cause damage with three parts of his body: horns, teeth, and feet. Please keep in mind that what I'm going to say here are personal reflections, not exactly part of the Talmudic discussion. What can we learn from the lengthy discussions about what part of the animal is causing the damage? I believe we can try to draw a parallel and learn about the inner reasons we, human beings, cause damage to people. And by understanding these reasons, it is my assumption we can better prevent such damages from happening. So let's talk about keren. Keren is the first subcategory of ox. Keren means horns. Now, if we analyze the horns of an animal, they are there as a natural part of the animal. The animal doesn't do anything to have them, and would likely only use the horns as a natural response to being attacked, out of fear. This means horns are used to cause damage, but out of a defense of the animal. It would be more of an instinctive reaction. This could also be allegorically related to that part of us that instinctively reacts to being attacked. Sometimes we are put against the wall, we feel scared or attacked. We attack back without thinking. It is very hard to prevent this reaction, whether we are talking about a real ox, like the Talmud, or we are talking about this inner ox of ours. Perhaps we can even relate it to the level of nefesh in Kabbalah, our animal level, as we really call it. But it might even be more related to the guf, the body itself, since the soul level is connected to the body. In any case, the Talmud makes it very clear that we have a duty of safeguarding and preventing these damages to happen. Thus, it is not okay to just hurt people or cause damage. Even if we acknowledge we have instinctive and emotional reactions, this does not mean we can keep going and goring people around. I can't gore you and then just say, I'm sorry, this is my instinct. We must know how we operate. We must know we have these pointy horns that can hurt and anticipate problems and minimize the possibility of unleashing this beast. Neither in the Talmud, concerning a real ox, or in life, concerning our bovine self, we can allow nature to get the best of us without trying to domesticate our primal impulses. In that regard, it is interesting to notice that the Talmud does mention a lenient case related to ox and goring. It is the distinction made between a muad ox and a tamim ox. What does that mean? A goring ox is forewarned 3 times, which means that a judge would be more understanding if we are dealing with the 3 first occasions an ox gores someone. We would consider maybe this is not the nature of the ox, and he gored someone as an exception. So this ox is called tamim, and the judge would condemn the ox's owner with a lighter punishment. However, after 3 occurrences, this ox is considered muad, forewarned. I have all the evidence to believe that this is the nature of the ox, and that time and time again he will keep goring people. Maybe this is just his nature, and it is indeed his aggressive nature. The owner has to know that it is forewarned. So in case of a fourth incident of goring, no more excuses. The punishment will be heavier. Again, going back to our allegory, I suppose it would be applicable to those people who are always doing things instinctively and causing problems. You know who I'm talking about. There are those people that say things like, oh, that is just who I am, or, you know, that's me, I didn't mean it, I was born like that, I guess I'll die like this. These people are basically assuming and confessing to us they are a muad ox, and maybe we should listen. Is it realistic to expect they will change their behavior, or should I suppose this is how they act and who they are? I can do so if I wish, but I cannot say that there was not forewarning, that I was not aware of that beforehand. As to these people, psychologically, they are basically saying, look, I know I can cause whatever damage to the world, and I won't or I can't change. I am telling you how I am, and I'll keep going. They use their nature as an excuse to be as they are. Okay, so following with our allegory, we consider now the second subcategory of ox. In Hebrew, it is called shen. In English, teeth. You might have thought this is damage caused by biting, but no, it's caused when the ox eats something. For example, it comes to my field and eats my premium flowers that would most probably win the contest of lilies. Or he just eats my corn and causes me financial damage. The subcategory of shen, teeth, is about the animal going after a different kind of instinct. It is not being attacked and trying to defend itself. It is destroying property by eating, like eating something that belongs to another person. Well, you may ask, what's the difference might be here, since eating and drinking as well is just another part of the animal instinct, and in that case, no different than goring to defend himself. But then the Talmud explains that there is something else involved here, pleasure. Yes, goring and eating are indeed instincts, but caused by two very different things, fear and pleasure. Thus, back to our analogy, we might draw a comparison to the damages we cause when we are falling prey to pleasure. The first thing that comes to mind is the act of drinking or using other drugs, of course, but we can extend this to, for example, sexual ethics or even other behaviors, such as our online activity or gambling. It is very obvious that we shouldn't drink and drive. For example, in Brazilian law, here where I live, it might even be a crime, in fact, depending on the level of alcohol in the bloodstream of the driver. But notice how interesting here, the Talmud is more focused on damage done to others, not to the individual itself. Maybe, just maybe, and how I said before, this is a personal reflection of mine, okay? Not the Talmud's view. This is akin of the reason some have that if you are doing something you enjoy, you take pleasure, and this causes no harm to others, maybe everything's fine. But from the moment you start causing harm to others, to society, or you may damage properties, something must be done. So just to be clear, in the first scenario, that of Keren, goring, we would be talking about damage caused without any benefit other than escaping pain or out of fear. Here we are talking about causing damage in order to get pleasure. See the difference? Gossiping might also be included here because people feel pleasure when they are destroying reputations. Again, begs the question the Talmud asked earlier. Is it man's typical manner to cause damage? It makes us think, right? Okay, last in our allegory comes the subcategory of regel, the animal's feet. Here, the Talmud will discuss damage caused by an animal when trampling over items and maybe people. This damage is caused when the animal is just walking in the streets, for example, and inadvertently breaks a pottery, for example, because it didn't see the pottery in the street. So, according to the Talmud, in this case, the damage is caused as a complete accident and due to a completely natural act, meaning the act of walking. Contrast this with the two other ones. Here the ox is not acting by instinct. He's not moved by fear. He's not hungry and trying to get any pleasure. He's just walking, simply striding along because he can. And I don't know, maybe because the ox is a little sloppy, or because it is too big and it passed through a narrow street, or because it didn't pay attention, I don't know, it broke a pottery while walking. So, if we come back to our analogy, here we are talking about people that cause damage and harm, but in a complete unintentional way. They did it and they didn't even notice. Maybe if I don't call them to talk and tell them that they hurt me, they won't even realize what has happened. As I said, maybe they are just sloppy. Maybe they weren't paying too much attention. Maybe they were stressed and this went by. The point is, they didn't mean to cause harm. For example, a lover or a colleague at work that said something slightly rude. We felt offended by the words, so it caused us emotional damage, but they really didn't mean it. They said it without thinking, and they really didn't know that their words would harm us. You know what I mean? So, in this case, the Talmud will ask, how do we deal with this kind of damage? How do we punish the ox's owner and compensate the pottery's owner, for example? In case of our analogy, how would we make things right and repair the damages caused? What would you say? Please share your comments below. Not only on this matter, to be more specific, but on the whole topic we are discussing here. What's your take on that? Is there any other lesson you believe we could learn from these discussions of the Talmud? Please share your insights with our community here in the comments. I will love to read your perceptions. Remember also that maybe you'll be sharing light with someone in dire need of it. Well, that's it for today. I really hope you liked this video, and if you did, please make sure to check our other projects and content in this my channel. Like, share, comment and subscribe. And if you believe our video has moved you, please consider becoming a member through our Patreon or channel membership. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a fruitful week with your Torah and Talmud studies. Stay healthy, stay tuned, see you next week. Shavua Tov.